The billionaire. Father watched a black waitress dance with his disabled son, and her life was never the same again. Silence fell over the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, owned by Kingsley. Not a word was spoken. Forks and knives paused midair. All eyes turned toward the small space between the dining tables. 10-year-old Arthur Montgomery stood trembling. His legs locked in a rigid metal support frame barely held him upright. Yet he still reached out his hand toward Maya Johnson, the restaurant's only black waitress. The soft sound of a piano had just begun to play, and something in Arthur's heart told him to ask someone to dance. "You should control your son, manager," Thornton snapped. "This is not a dance floor. Our staff are not here to entertain children." Richard Montgomery, chairman of Montgomery Investments and one of the wealthiest men in America, swallowed hard. This was his first time taking Arthur out since the accident that left his son paralyzed 2 years ago. "Arthur, sit down," he said sternly, his voice low and commanding. But Maya didn't move. Her gaze shifted from Thornton to the billionaire at the corner table to the small hand still extended toward her. "Mr. Thornton, my shift just ended," Maya said quietly. She untied her apron, folded it, and placed it neatly on a tray. Then, to everyone's surprise, she smiled at Arthur and gently took his hand. "I can't dance properly with an apron on." Richard sprang to his feet. "What do you think you're doing?" Maya met his eyes calmly. "I'm simply accepting an invitation, sir." Arthur took one slow step forward, dragging his legs with effort, the metal braces screeching softly across the floor. Maya didn't rush him, didn't lead. She simply matched his steps, adjusted to his rhythm. "She'll be fired by tomorrow," a woman at the next table whispered. Richard stood frozen. A memory surfaced, his late wife Elizabeth dancing with Arthur in their living room. "It doesn't have to be perfect," she once said. "It just has to be real." As Maya moved with Arthur's clumsy steps, the boy's face changed. Fear gave way to focus, shame transformed into pride. For the first time since the accident, he wasn't being guided. He was guiding. Mr. Montgomery Thornton interjected again. "I assure you this will never happen again. She will be dealt with accordingly." But Richard said nothing. The restaurant was dead silent. Everyone waited for his reaction. A single word from him could end anyone's career in that room. Yet the only thing echoing in his mind was his son's quiet, joyful laughter. After 3 steps and a small twirl, Maya gently led Arthur back to the table. "Thank you for inviting me to dance," she said formally, like speaking to an adult. "It was an honor." As she turned to leave, Richard's voice cut through the silence. "Wait." His tone was unfamiliar even to himself. "What's your full name, Maya Johnson, sir?" He nodded slowly. "Maya Johnson." He repeated it as if committing it to memory. Then he reached into his suit jacket and handed her a business card. "Be at my office, 10 a.m. tomorrow." The entire restaurant held its breath. Maya accepted the card, her face unreadable though her hands trembled slightly. "Dad," Arthur asked softly after she walked away. "Why did you do that?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Richard looked at his son, and in that moment he no longer saw Arthur as a burden shaped by tragedy, but as a whole human being with desires and needs he had ignored for 2 years. The Montgomery Tower loomed into the Manhattan sky, its mirrored glass reflecting the blazing morning sun. Down in the marble lobby, Maya stood clutching the business card with trembling fingers. It read, "Richard Montgomery, chairman of the board." She wore a neatly pressed white blouse she had ironed the night before, paired with smart black trousers. Her hair was pulled back into a high bun. Her shoes were polished, every detail in place, but her hands were sweating. She had no idea what awaited her upstairs. At the reception desk, the front desk assistant looked her up and down, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "You here to make a delivery?" Maya held out the card. "I have a meeting with Mr. Montgomery. 10 a.m. The receptionist frowned, quickly dialed a number on the internal phone. After a few seconds, she gave a reluctant nod. "Elevator 3, floor 52, you're cleared to go up." Inside the elevator, Maya inhaled deeply. Is this a trap? A polite way to fire me? Or something bigger? The doors opened to the top floor, serene, expansive, quiet. Gleaming wooden floors, priceless art lining the walls. A bronze sculpture stood at the center like a sentinel. Richard's private assistant greeted her. "Miss Johnson, right this way." In the office, Richard stood with his back to her, facing the vast cityscape through a floor-to-ceiling window. He turned slowly as she entered. "Can you sit?" he asked. Maya nodded and took a seat across from him in a sleek leather chair. "I don't even know where to begin," Richard said after a pause. Last night, I saw something I've missed for a long time. Maya remained quiet. She didn't want to interrupt. Arthur hasn't willingly interacted with anyone since the accident. He refused physical therapy, refused counseling. And then yesterday, he invited you to dance. Not a nurse, not a family member. You. Maya smiled gently. I just thought, maybe he needed someone to believe in him. You got him to take 3 steps. 3. Something his doctors and the top rehab specialists in the country couldn't do. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a folder. This is an employment contract. I want you to be Arthur's full-time personal companion. You'll live in the guest wing of our estate. Starting salary, $80,000 a year. Chauffeured transportation, full benefits, everything. Maya's eyes widened. I'm sorry. What did you say? Richard placed the pen on the desk. I'm not joking. I looked into your background. 2 years of nursing at Howard University, dropped out when your mother fell ill. You cared for her until the end. Then you worked in restaurants. That takes discipline. And heart. No one can teach that. Maya was speechless. It had been a long time since anyone saw anything in her beyond her skin color or job title. I'm not sure I'm qualified. You are, Richard interrupted firmly. More than qualified. Arthur needs you, and I need to learn how to be a father again. A long silence followed. Maya looked down at the folder, then back up at Richard. All right, she said, but I have one condition. Richard raised an eyebrow. I won't treat Arthur like a patient. I'll treat him like a partner. I'll let him lead the way. Do you agree to that? Richard smiled, perhaps for the first time in months. I look forward to it. The Montgomery estate stood hidden behind tall iron gates and a sleek security system surrounded by old-growth trees and perfectly trimmed lawns. As the black town car rolled up the cobblestone driveway, Maya's breath caught in her throat. This world was light years from her cramped apartment in the Bronx. The front door swung open. A middle-aged white woman with a sharp presence stepped forward. I'm Margaret Head, housekeeper, she said curtly, not offering a handshake. Her eyes swept from Maya's neat bun to the simple suitcase in her hand. I'll be going over the house rules and making sure everything runs to standard. Maya nodded politely, but she could already feel the chill in the air. Arthur was sitting in his wheelchair on the balcony, gazing at the small lake. When he saw Maya, he raised his eyebrows. You actually came, he said softly but clearly. I made a promise, Maya replied, sitting on the bench beside him. Dad always hires people and they leave. Arthur said, eyes still on the lake. Are you going to leave too, as long as you keep inviting me to dance? Maya smiled. I'll be here. Arthur chuckled, a small sound, but enough to warm Maya's heart. The first day passed with cautious distance. Maya learned how to walk Arthur through the garden, read books aloud to him, and gradually began to understand his quiet rhythm. But Margaret's eyes followed from afar. The head housekeeper was clearly displeased with that waitress girl's presence, as she referred to Maya during hushed phone calls with the chef. You think just because the boss noticed you, you can rise above your place, Margaret whispered when she crossed paths with Maya in the hallway. People like you never last long. Maya didn't answer. She had lived her whole life with whispers like that. The only difference now was she wasn't here to please anyone. She was here to stand by a boy who needed her. One rainy afternoon, Arthur asked to go out into the garden. It's raining, Arthur, Maya reminded him. You'll get soaked. I want to feel the rain. I haven't dared to go out in the rain since the accident. Maya didn't hesitate. She grabbed a large coat to cover them both and pushed the wheelchair out into the open yard. The cold raindrops fell, but Arthur tilted his head up, closed his eyes, and laughed. Really laughed. Margaret stood at the window, phone in hand. She's gone too far, she said into the phone. Mr. Montgomery needs to know the truth. That girl doesn't know her place. That evening, Richard returned from a short business trip. Arthur rolled his chair out to greet him, the first time he'd done so willingly. Dad. You won't believe it. I went outside in the rain today. Richard glanced at Maya, his face softened. What are you doing to my boy? He asked quietly as they stepped into his private office. Maya didn't flinch. I'm not doing anything. I just didn't stop him. He nodded slowly. I've spent so long afraid of losing my son, I ended up locking him in a glass box. He doesn't need a father to protect him, Mr. Montgomery, Maya said. He needs a father to walk beside him. Richard fell silent at that, but in the shadows, Margaret began her plan. An anonymous email was sent to the board of Montgomery Investments, attached with photos of Maya pushing Arthur in the rain, and the caption, "This waitress is manipulating the boss's son, and maybe the boss himself." Somewhere else in the city, a tabloid journalist received a text message, "I have an exclusive story. A black waitress is living inside the Montgomery mansion." That morning, Maya woke up as usual, preparing breakfast for Arthur. But as she stepped downstairs, she felt the shift in the air. Staff avoided her gaze, a few whispered behind her back, and Margaret stood next to the dining table, arms folded, a smug smile on her face. "Mr. Montgomery wants to see you," she said. Immediately. Maya took a deep breath and walked into the study. Richard sat behind his desk, his expression unreadable. On the desk lay a folder filled with printed images from the house security cameras, Maya pushing Arthur in the rain, the two laughing in the garden, even moments where she helped him practice walking near the lake. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Richard asked, voice cold. "Say what?" Maya struggled to stay composed. "That I'm helping your son come out of his shell." "Someone sent these photos to the press," Richard continued, "along with a narrative that you're using Arthur to climb the ladder." Maya's face went pale. "You believe that?" she asked, voice cracking. "I'm here for Arthur. Because he trusts me. Not for money, not for status." "But you understand this could become a scandal," Richard said, avoiding her gaze. "I have a responsibility to protect my family and the company's image. Maybe you should take some time away." Maya's heart sank. The door burst open. Arthur stood there, gripping the armrests of his wheelchair, eyes red and glassy. "No," he shouted, voice shaking. "If she goes, I'm going too, Arthur. You think she's using me? Did you see me walk? Did you see me laugh? She's the only one who doesn't treat me like a burden." He pushed himself up. His legs trembled, but he stayed upright. Maya rushed to his side, steadying him. "She's the reason I want to live again," Arthur said, locking eyes with his father. "And if you can't see that, then you're not the man I used to look up to." Silence. Heavy. Complete. Richard looked at his son, then at Maya. The conflict inside him was written all over his face. Finally, he lowered his head. I'm sorry," he whispered. "I let fear and public pressure cloud my judgment." He turned to Maya. "I forgot who actually brought my son back to life." But the storm wasn't over. The media caught fire. Headlines exploded across news sites. "Black maid living in Montgomery mansion. The truth behind the smile." Secret relationship between staff and billionaire's son. Paparazzi stalked Maya outside the house. She was hounded with questions, photographed without consent, and attacked by vicious online comments. Arthur read every single word, and he made a choice. He would not stay silent. He posted a video on his personal account, which had gained a massive following after his accident. In it, he spoke with calm, unwavering clarity. "My name is Arthur Montgomery. I suffered a spinal cord injury in a car crash. For 2 years, I lost hope, lost faith. But then someone came into my life, not a doctor, not a therapist. Her name is Maya Johnson. She didn't pity me. She danced with me, she taught me how to laugh again, and she helped me stand. If anyone thinks love, trust, and hope are just stepping stones for scandal, then they've never known what dignity is." Within 3 hours, the video had over 2 million views. The next morning, NBC called Montgomery Tower with a proposal, a live national interview with Arthur and Maya. Margaret went pale. She had never expected her smear campaign to backfire so completely. Richard entered the kitchen where Maya was quietly sipping coffee. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've taught me how to trust people again." "And I've learned," Maya replied softly, "sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you." That morning, the Montgomery living room was transformed into a temporary studio. Cameras, lights, microphones, all prepared for NBC's live interview. Maya sat beside Arthur, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. He smiled at her as if to say, "I'm ready now." Across from them sat Michelle Howard, the poised and compassionate anchor in her 40s. She began warmly. "Ladies and gentlemen, today, we bring you a story that's touched hearts across America. A young man who lost everything, and the woman who brought light back into his life." The camera slowly panned to Arthur. Michelle asked, "Can you tell us why you decided to share your story publicly?" Arthur nodded. "Because too many people just see a wheelchair and forget there's a person sitting in it. And because I want the world to know sometimes you don't need the best doctor, you just need someone who believes in you." Michelle turned to Maya. "And you?" Maya, why did you agree to take care of Arthur knowing so many might not accept you? Maya took a breath. Because I was once that kid, the one people looked at with suspicion. Because I know what it's like to feel like an outsider. And I thought, if I can make just one person feel seen, heard, and valued, then that's something worth doing. The studio audience was in tears. On the live stream, comments poured in by the thousands. This is what real love looks like. Arthur and Maya are the hope we needed. She didn't save him, they saved each other. Arthur stood there, his hands gripping the armrests of his wheelchair, eyes red with emotion. No, he shouted, his voice trembling. If she's leaving, then I'm leaving too, Arthur. You think she's using me? Dad, did you see me walk? Did you see me smile? She's the only one who never saw me as a burden. He braced himself and stood. His legs shook, but he held his balance. Maya rushed to support him. She's the reason I want to live again, Arthur said, locking eyes with his father. And if you can't see that, then you're no longer the man I once looked up to. Silence fell. Richard looked at his son, then at Maya. The inner conflict in his eyes was clear. Finally, he lowered his head. I'm sorry, he said softly. I let public opinion and fear guide me. He turned to Maya. I forgot who truly changed my son's life. But the storm wasn't over. The news exploded. Headlines across media sites blazed Black housekeeper living in Montgomery Mansion, the truth behind the smile. Suspicious relationship between maid and billionaire's son. Maya was chased by paparazzi the moment she left the house. She was interrogated, secretly photographed, flooded with hateful comments online. Arthur read every single one, and he decided to break the silence. He posted a video on his personal account, which had gained a massive following after his accident. He spoke clearly. My name is Arthur Montgomery. I suffered a spinal cord injury after a car accident. For 2 years, I lost hope. I lost myself. Then someone came into my life, not a doctor, not a therapist, but Maya Johnson. She didn't pity me. She danced with me, made me laugh, helped me stand. If anyone thinks that love, trust, and hope are social climbing scandals, then they clearly don't understand dignity. Within 3 hours, the video had over 2 million views. The next day, NBC called Montgomery Tower requesting a live interview with Arthur and Maya. Margaret's face turned pale. Her plan to destroy Maya had completely backfired. Richard walked into the kitchen where Maya sat quietly sipping coffee. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You've taught me to believe in people again. And I've learned, Maya replied softly. Sometimes all it takes is one person to believe in you. That morning, the Montgomery Mansion's living room was transformed into a small TV studio. Lights, cameras, microphones, all set for NBC's live broadcast. Maya sat beside Arthur, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. He smiled as if to say, I'm ready. The host, a warm-voiced woman named Michelle Howard, sat across from them. She began, Ladies and gentlemen, today we meet 2 people who've touched the heart of America. A boy who had lost all hope, and a woman who brought light back into his world. The camera slowly panned to Arthur. Arthur, Michelle asked, Can you tell us why you decided to share your story? Arthur nodded. Because too many people only see a wheelchair and forget there's a person sitting in it. And because I want the world to know sometimes we don't need the best doctor. We just need someone who believes in us. Michelle turned to Maya. And you, Maya, why did you agree to take care of Arthur knowing not everyone would accept you? Maya took a deep breath. Because I was once a child who people looked at with suspicion. I know what it feels like to be seen as an outsider, and I thought, if I could make just one person feel seen, heard, then I should do that. The studio audience burst into tears. On the live stream, thousands of comments poured in. I'm crying. Maya is an angel. Arthur is living proof of the power of belief. This isn't a pity story, this is a story of hope. As the interview ended, Richard stepped out from backstage. He took Maya's hand and held it tightly in front of millions of viewers. I'm Richard Montgomery, he said. And today, I want to say something publicly. Maya's eyes widened slightly. At first, I hired her thinking I was helping a struggling Black woman, but the truth is, she's the one who saved my family. He paused, looking straight into the camera. And with that, I'm proud to announce Maya Johnson is officially appointed Director of the Montgomery Family Foundation's Social Reintegration Program. She will lead initiatives for children with disabilities, immigrants, and single mothers. Thunderous applause filled the studio. Maya broke into tears. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Margaret was watching the live stream on her iPad. Her face went white. A security officer approached, handing her an envelope. "Mr. Montgomery has requested that you vacate the premises immediately," he said. Margaret screamed, "I've worked here for 20 years, and she's just a maid." "No," the guard replied. "She's family." That night, Maya stood on the balcony gazing out at the city lights below. Arthur wheeled up beside her. "You know, he said before you came, I used to think I was just a burden." "And now?" Maya asked. He smiled. "Now I think maybe I can change the world." Maya turned to him, gently brushing his hair. "Then let's begin, my little hero." 2 months after the televised interview, Maya Johnson had become a household name. She was invited to speak across the country about reintegration and became a symbol of inspiration for women and people of color. But she never forgot her roots. On Arthur's 13th birthday, the entire Montgomery family planned a trip to Hawaii. Maya went along, assisting Arthur during the flight. The plane departed from Los Angeles. Once it reached cruising altitude, Maya walked over to chat with Arthur. Suddenly, a panicked flight attendant rushed through the aisle, shouting, "The captain's unconscious. We need help." Panic erupted in the cabin. The aircraft jolted, turbulence rattling everyone. In the cockpit, chaos reigned. Even the co-pilot was incapacitated due to oxygen imbalance. Over the intercom, "We are experiencing an emergency. If anyone has flying experience, please alert the crew." Maya stood up immediately. A white male passenger scoffed, "Who do you think you are? A pilot?" Maya looked him dead in the eye. "Yes, and I've flown 3 different aircraft types." She stormed into the cockpit. The crew stared in shock as a calm black woman not in uniform took the captain's seat. Maya flipped the switch to manual control. "Patch me through to ground control," she ordered. "I'm taking her down." "Who is flying this Boeing 787? Came the response from air traffic control. "This is Maya Johnson, former pilot, and I'm bringing this plane home." After 27 nail-biting minutes, Maya executed an emergency landing in Honolulu. All 226 passengers were safe. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines blared, "Black former pilot saves entire flight from disgraced housemaid to sky heroine." As Maya stepped off the aircraft, the tarmac erupted in applause. Arthur rushed up, hugging her tightly. "You did it, Maya. You're unstoppable." And a week later, the President of the United States sent a personal invitation. Maya Johnson would receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, honoring her extraordinary contributions to humanitarian work and aviation safety. She had left her mark not only on Arthur, not only on the Montgomerys, but in the history of America. Every year, thousands of women of color are pushed out of professional sports due to prejudice. But there's one thing no one can take from them: willpower and fire. Believe in what no one else believes in, even yourself.